This presentation is a discussion on a database for Linux using Postgres on the Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit, known as EMET version 5.0 for Windows. This presentation is done by Mark Mosley for the ISA4220 class at Kennesaw State University in spring 2016 semester. This presentation is done on March 13, 2016. The technical discussion for the database on Linux Postgres. Postgres SQL is an object relational database management system. It works on Linux, Unix, Windows, and other operating systems. Has been available for 15 plus years, and it is an open source software, meaning it is free to use for everybody. It supports the storage of binary large objects, so you can store sounds, pictures, videos. It is not just a text database. It works with other programming languages for importing and exporting records and writing custom scripts to and from the database. Some of these languages are C, C++, Java, .NET, Perl, Python, and Ruby. There are more languages as well, but they're some of the most common ones. Some of the key features, and there are quite a few of them: multi-version concurrency control, so not two people can be updating the same record at the same time and only one version gets saved. Point-in-time recovery, table spaces, asynchronous replication, nested transcripts so you can create save points in the database, online hot backups, so you can do simultaneous replication of the database to other locations or other servers, sophisticated query planner authorization, so you can have preset reports and queries running in the databases on a set schedule, and you don't have to manually run them every time you need them. You also have it set for international character sets, so if you're not in the US or you have main headquarters in the US but users in the other country, it recognizes the other languages. Local aware for sorting and case sensitivity. The Postgres database is highly scalable, both in the sheer quantity of data within the database and also the number of concurrent users that can be logged into the database at one time. These are the limitations, and they're not all limitations, like the unlimited database size and the maximum rows per table. They can be adjusted, so when you start getting to a maximum size, you can go in and make a modification to the configuration file of the database and expand it out. But these are generally the maximum sizes. There is an operational database with 4 terabytes of data in it right now that is in production. So a lot of data can be in the database. Postgres is a standards compliant database system. It is SQL implementation, conforms to the ANSI SQL 2008 standards. They just had a new version come out, and depending on which version you are, they released multiple versions for you. So if you were on version 9.2 or 9.3, they released a fix for each version. This fix fixed multiple security issues and several bugs that had been reported. The Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit version 5.0 is a free tool released July 31, 2014. It's designed to help with defense and strategy defense in-depth strategy against cyber attacks. It does this by helping to detect and block exploitation techniques that are more commonly used to exploit memory corruption vulnerabilities. It protects your computer with security updates and anti-malware software. It also has 14 security mitigation tools installed with default protection profiles for the most common softwares found on your computer. It can be deployed through the Microsoft System Center Configuration Manager. Group policies can be configured through Active Directory to comply with enterprise account user and role policies depending on how your company is set up. It can be customized to fit the need of each specific company's organization for security measures. So if you don't need it to do 2 or 3 out of the 14 softwares, you don't have to use them. If you're already having that handled by a purchased third-party software, you don't have to use the tools within this software. This software can also be used in a regular non-domain network. So if you're not big enough to set up your own internal domain and just have a couple of regular computers in a work group setting, you can also still use this computer there. Some of the technical features of EMET is the attack surface reduction. It's designed to block the usage of specific modules within an application. So like this PowerPoint video, I can prevent it from loading a QuickTime video player within the PowerPoint if I thought it was a security risk to my company. Or we can use it to block certain plugins within security zones of the internet while we allow the plugin to be used in other security zones. So the Adobe Flash Player or the Java Player, just because they have so many security vulnerabilities, we don't like it in the untrusted sites of the internet, so we're going to disable it. But the local intranet where we have all of our training videos, our IT help videos, we will enable it so people can still see all of the videos they need. The Export Address Table Filtering Plus is an expansion of the Export Address Table Filtering Mitigation. It adds capabilities and abilities. Improvements are designed to help detect and disrupt return-oriented programming techniques when a vulnerability is exploited. Additional integrity checks are performed when export tables are read from lower-level modules, and it prevents memory read options when originating from suspicious code. Now, we're looking at EMET 5.0. You have version 5.1, which was released in November 2014. Version 5.1 improved the security strength for companies that upgraded because of increased application compatibility and hardened mitigations. There are multiple compatibility issues with Internet Explorer, Adobe Reader, Adobe Flash, and Mozilla Firefox. Some of the tools within EMET have been hardened to make them more resistant to attacks and bypasses. And you also have a local telemetry feature that have been added to do a local save of memory dumps when a mitigation is triggered. And you also, if you were using Internet Explorer on Windows 7 or 8.1 with EMET 5.0, with the Microsoft Windows Patch Tuesday, there was a security update in November 2014 that caused compatibility issues with the EAF Plus tool. So you need to upgrade to version 5.1 or disable EAF plus on 5.0. These are the operating systems that 5.2 and 5.5 beta work on. Yes, I was talking about 5.1. 5.2 is out there, and 5.5 beta is out there as well. And these are the 14 different tools that are built in to EMET. A couple down on the bottom: caller checks and simulate execution flow only work on 32-bit systems. So a lot of computers these days are going to 64-bit processors in the CPU. So these two systems won't be available on the newer 64-bit computers. And then of course Windows 10 untrusted fonts. Well, if you don't have a Windows 10 computer, it's not going to be available, and this is only available on the 5.5 beta right now. Best practices for database Linux Postgres is enabling encryption of the database. Now, when we say enable encryption of the database, there are multiple levels of encryption that can be enabled, and depending on your type of company, government or industry rules, recommendations, best practices, or security measures required. If you're in a medical field, you have regulations, HIPAA. College, university, high school, you've got FERPA. Financial, you got Oxley-Barnes, a couple other regulations. Or if you versus a mom and pop store that are big enough to need a database, you have different levels of requirements for protecting your information. So there are 7 different encryptions, and it's not of the entire database, but of different parts of the database that you can do. So the encryptions are password storage encryption, encryption for specific columns, like if you wanted to encrypt the social security numbers of everybody in your database. Data partition encryption, encrypting passwords across a network, encrypting data across a network, SSL host authentication, and client-side encryption. The minimum recommendations are password storage encryption, encrypting passwords across the network, encrypting data across the network, and SSL host authentication are the 4 that we're going to recommend. Also, there is no built-in audit trail procedure. It is relatively simple to create your own audit trail within Postgres. Of course, it depends on how much information you want it to capture, and depending on the type of event, whether it's create, modify, delete, new for each type of transaction within the database. But we'll show you how to create that later. Best practices for EMET 5.0. Upgrade to the latest version to remove the security vulnerabilities plus the additional benefits and features. So upgrade to 5.2, or if you like, go to the beta of 5.5. If you can't do that and you have to stay on version 5.0, if that security vulnerability of EAF plus affects you, temporarily disable that. Enable certificate trust rules. With Internet Explorer, when you have SSL connections, if you connect to an untrusted network, it still sends not the data across, but the connection information across. With this enabled, the certificate trust rule, once it connects and recognizes that it's an untrusted certificate on the other end of the connection, it will not connect. It will immediately drop the connection and not send any connection information. Encryption for the database, how to implement best practices. Obviously, SSL host authentication prevents man-in-the-middle attacks. Must be configured on both the client side and the server side. You're also talking about encrypting passwords this way, so you don't have passwords stored in clear text and people don't log in. And then passwords across networks. Well, people don't log into a database directly at the server, and the server doesn't sit on one computer anymore. So you need to enable passwords across the database, and it's just like you're going to have a lot of information going across the network as well. So you don't want all that information being transmitted in clear text, so you need to enable encryption across of data across the network. The audit trail, how to implement it. I've written some instructions for you. These are very basic instructions of how to create an audit trail. I won't go into the full details, but you can take a look at them. So you first have to create an audit trail table to log the messages, and then you have to create the trigger. So when X happens in the database, create a record in the audit trail. And then with that combined, this is what the combined message looks like. And then when an event is triggered, this would be what gets recorded into the database. If you want detailed instructions on how to set it up, because you can put more information into the database of what gets recorded. So this is just date and time stamp. You can also add employee ID, table. You can add a lot of things to this record if you want it in the audit trail, but that is company decision specific. So there's the link to see how to create specific audit trails and customize them. How to implement best practices for EMET. The link to just upgrade to version 5.5. There's the website to download from, technet.microsoft.com. If you have to stay on version 5.0 to temporarily disable EAF Plus, open the Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit, find the Export Address Table Filtering Plus EAF, and click on the down arrow to the right under System Statuses and select Disable. To enable the certificate trust rules, obviously with the toolkit open, click on the down arrow to the right of Certificate Trust Pinning and select Enable to turn on the certificate trust rules. Then you want to click the wizard icon at the top of the toolkit so you can open up the configuration portion of it. And then with the configuration open, you need to click on the Pinning Rules tab, and under the block rules, check the rules that you wish to turn on, or you can click on the new rule icon to create new rules. And here is a screenshot of the certificate trust configuration window with the block and rule highlighted in red. And to configure the attack surface reduction, once again open the toolkit, click the down arrow to the right of attack surface reduction under System Status and make sure it's enabled, and then up at the top again click on Configuration Wizard. And let's say we're going to make Adobe Flash Player not work in the trusted security zones for Internet Explorer, but we will make it work in the trusted zones and the internet. So in the configuration wizard for ASR, click on Internet IE-Explorer.exe on the left, and then down towards the bottom, click on the down arrow to the left of Attack Surface Reduction to uncollapse it. And then on the Internet Zone Exceptions, click the down arrow and select Local Internet and Trusted Sites. And here is a screenshot of what that looks like. And then these are the references that I used.